All right, good day, class. So our lecture for today is about break-even analysis. But first, let's discuss first what is this so-called break-even point. Okay, so the break-even point is the quantity of production at which the income is equal to the total cost. Meaning, kung equal mong income o sa imong cost, that means wala kay loss, pero wala sa kay profit. Okay, and then when you look at the break-even chart. This is the break-even point is the intersection of the income line and the total cost line. So we'll discuss that on the next slide. Now, when you have two alternatives class that are to be compared, ang break-even point nimo is katong intersection sa total cost line for each alternative on the break-even part. Okay, so there's a difference between gitanaw lang nimo ang break-even sa isa ka alternative, which is that katong income equals imong total cost. But when you're comparing alternatives, ang atong break-even point is the the point where the total cost of those two alternatives being compared are intersecting. Okay, so we have examples of different scenarios as we go along. All right, so this is our break-even chart now. X here is the unit sold, the Y is the revenue. So um the blue graph here, class, is the revenue, and the yellow line here is the cost. Okay. So, of course, at first, you will have revenue gyapon, no, at a lower value than your loss. Okay. So, ang idea is when you're starting a business, mas daghan man jud ka og loss sa few months or even few years sa start sa imong business. That's because na pa man kay capital nga dako, and then wala pa kayo kay return ba. So comparing the two parameters, of course less than imong revenue at a certain time, no, certain point in time. And then um when that line class, or when the two graphs intersect, unsa na siya nga point, we call it the break-even point. As I've mentioned before, this is where wala kay loss, wala sad kay profit. Okay, nag-equal man gud imuhang cost of imong revenue. And then beyond that break-even point, you will start to gain more revenue as compared to your cost. Okay, that's why you have here the loss, because your profit is negative, no. Ideally ang imuhang profit is positive or negative raman na, and if it is a negative value, that means you are losing, no, rather than gaining. So in this case, at this time, kini nga time when you're when the unit sold is less than the break even point, you have more cost than your revenue. That means you have loss. And then beyond the break-even point class, dira na kamo start to gain of profit. Positive nang imong profit, no, because your revenue now is greater than your costs. Okay? That's the break-even chart. So let's have an example here. Okay, so I already annotated kay para madali atong discussion. So we have I think around 4 to 5 problems here. So example 1, XYZ Corporation manufactures bookcases that sells for 65 pesos each. Okay, it cost XYZ 35,000 per year to operate its plant. This sum includes the rent, depreciation charges and equipment, and salary payments. If the cost to produce one bookcase is 50 pesos, how many cases must be sold each year for XYZ to avoid taking a loss? Okay, so first we identify what is given to us, class. First we have we let sa class, we let X be the number of bookcases sold each year. Okay, so we let lang sa the variable X, no, as the number. Okay, this is the unknown value man. And then we identify the income. Okay, the income and the cost. First, the income, it says here, class, that it will sell at 65 pesos each. That means your income is 65 times the number of bookcases sold that year. Okay, so that means we have 65x. Okay, that's just for the income. Kaya wala na may laing income value, no? Aside from the selling price niya, which is the 65 pesos. So we go now to the costs and or expenses. So we are given with this value, 35,000 per year to operate its plant. Now, I would like to emphasize that when you solve, be sure that all your values are consistent. Kung naka-monthly na siya tanan, i-monthly po nimo tanan. Kung naka-yearly, yearly. In this case, ang ato ang project class is a year man, no? Because the operational cost or operation cost is given to us per year, and we are asked for the number of bookcases sold each year. Okay, so annual lang atong projection. So consistent rata in this way, no? So again, we are given 35,000, so that's the operational cost. And then if the cost to produce one bookcase is 50 pesos. Now this one class, I think I have discussed this during the midterm, but pinalabay lang, no? But this is actually what you call the variable cost. This is the cost na gavary siya per unit. So volume based siya. So meaning how it depends sa how many units you have sold. That's also the variable cost niya. So kung ningon siya diri nga the variable cost or the cost to produce one bookcase is 50 pesos, meaning if you multiply that by the number of bookcases sold, then that is your variable cost. Okay, 50 pesos times how many bookcases are being sold. Okay, now the question now, class, is how many cases must be sold each year to XYZ for XYZ to avoid taking a loss. Now this statement right here, to avoid taking a loss, it's actually referring to the break-even point, because in order for the XYZ company or corporation to avoid taking a loss, it must be greater or equal to the break-even point class. Okay, anything less than um ana nga value, na naman siya loss, di ba? Because we know from the break-even chart that the number of units sold that is less than your break-even point, the loss pa man ka. Okay, so pila din nakabuok dapat niya mabaligya kada year para wala siya loss. Okay, so to avoid taking loss, income should be equal to the expenses. So we already have the income, and then here are the expenses. So we must add all of this class and equate. Okay, that's why we have 65x equals 35,000 plus 50x. Okay, so if we solve for the x there, we get 2,333.33. Now, this is number of bookcases, no? So whatever atong value nakadecimal, ato na siyang i-round off. So in this case, it's approximately 2,334 bookcases ang kailangan di ay mabaligya sa company class to avoid taking a loss. Okay, so muna yung break-even point. Okay, we move on to the second example. Okay, this is from the ME board exam October of 1984. So dugay na kayo, that's why the prices here are very, very small, no? So the problem is a factory engaged in the fabrication of an automobile part with a production capacity of 700,000 units per year is only operating at 62% of capacity due to unavailability of the necessary foreign currency to finance the importation of the raw materials. The annual income is 430,000, annual fixed cost is 190,000, and the variable costs are 0.30 348 pesos per unit. What is the current profit or loss, and what is the break-even point? So that takes time to analyze. So tingnan na yun. Ingon siya diri class, it has a production capacity of 700,000 units per year. Meaning, in a year, it's capable of producing 700,000 units. However, due to unavailability daw of necessary foreign currency to finance importation of the raw materials, it's only operating at 62%. Meaning, we just need to get the 62% of the total units nga capable sila i-produce, no? And that is the actual na ma-produce nila per year. So that is the total units produced per year is 700,000 times 62%. That is 434,000 units. Okay, so that is very important in calculating for the profit or loss later. Okay, so then we identify the income and the expenses class. Says here the annual income is 430,000. So we have here the income. The expenses, we have the fixed cost is 190,000. Monisha. The variable costs are 0.348 pesos per unit. So per unit, if you calculate that, you must multiply it with the number of units class nga iyahang ma-produce. So multiply 434,000 by the variable cost, and that is equal to 151,032. Okay? So muna yung variable cost. So now the profit, how to solve for that is, of course, we know that the income minus the expenses. No? So the income is 430,000 minus the total of all the expenses. Of course, we i-total na ito duha class. So one. Subtract from 430,000, we get 88,968 pesos. So this is now our profit now for the actual nga production niya. Now, ang gipapangita ta og what is the break-even point? Ang atong nakita klase ang profit niya sa actual gyud sa iyang production capacity gyud nga yang gihatag sa tua. So, how do we compute for the break-even point? Of course, we let X number of units to break even. The idea magud sa even though nakasolve na tano og number of units produced per year, this is the actual number of units sold per year. Ang gipangutana pud sa tuwa next, aside from the profit, is the number of units to break even. Unsa din ang point na ma-break even siya. So in this case, before you solve, you might think no nga because the profit is already positive, we must assume that the break even point that we're gonna get should be lesser than this number. Why? Because if you check or even conceptually lang or common sense lang no will dictate that this value of the units produced per year is already giving profits sa corporation. That means the break-even point must be less than this value. Okay, just to check ba later. Kung less than ba yun, well, you can see on the screen naman na naman ko na-solve. But the idea is that, no. But how do we get the value lang sa or the equation? First, we must get the price, the selling price per unit. And it is already given to us, no, ang income and the number of units sold. So from there, we can get the selling price. So wala siya explicitly giingon, but common sense gi siya class, no? So again, in order to know the income for X, no, number of units to break even, we must know the selling price, and that is the income divided by the number of units. Now, sa actual na to nga income, we have 430,000. And the units produced, kay 434,000. So, if we divide the income minus the units, we will get the selling price, and that is 0.99 pesos. Okay, so this is the selling price that we're gonna use to compute for the income, no, given ang X na to. Okay, so this is our income. 0.99 times X, okay, unknown value, is equal to the expenses, which is the fixed cost. Fixed cost, mga dyan, so kapihon na to class 190,000, plus the variable cost. Now, the variable cost in this case is this one, 0.348, no, multiplied by X. X na siya, dili na siya 434,000 because this value here is unknown. Mo nang gi-X na to siya dire. Okay? If we equate all that, we can get X that is 295,952 units. Okay, so we're correct in our assumption that X is less than this value. Okay? Meaning, pagbaligya sa corporation, ani nga number of units class, nag-break even na sila. this is the start where they mo ni ang point no nga nag-start sila avoiding loss. Okay? And then by that time nga nakabaligya sila 434,000, mo na nilang profit na yun. Okay? Moving on to the next. A company has a production capacity of 500 units per month and its fixed costs are 250,000 a month. The variable costs per unit are 1,150 and each unit can be sold for 2,000. Economy measures are instituted to reduce the fixed cost by 10% and the variable costs by 20%. Determine the old and the new break-even points. What are the old and the new profit at 100% capacity? Okay, so this problem, you might think, hala, two alternatives na, but actually, it's not because niingon naman gud siya diri nga there's an old murag setup and then the new setup is there. Wala niya gi-compare asa ang better, but papangitaan ta class o break-even points for both the old and the new. Okay? So, also there ang old and new profit. So, let's compare the old and the new setup. Okay? So, first, let's identify the given. Let's divide this into two class, no? So, ilista, screenshot na ninyo kay para mo next page na magugko or mo next slide na magugko. So, this is our solution. So, again, divided by 2. We solve for the old and the new. Okay? For the old, let X be the old break-even point. Okay? And then the income class will be, balik lang ko ha, once in a while. So, asa na to? Okay, so, ayang mention is, it can be sold for 2,000 pesos. Okay, always find the value, the selling price class, because that will be your income. Okay, so this is now the selling price. It can be sold for 2,000. So that is why our income is 2,000x. And then the cost for this is na siya fixed cost ng 250,000 a month. Okay. By the way, ang iyang period ani is monthly. Okay? So dapat tanan natong mga values should be monthly. Okay? Anyways, okay raman kini 500 units per month, 250,000 a month, dayon na siya kini is variable man times man nato sa number of units na, so there's no problem. And then the rest is the same with our solution before. Okay, the fixed cost daw is 250,000, yes. And then the variable cost is this one, 1,150 each unit, no? So that is why we multiply it by X again. So same gyapon sa to ang previous example, we equate the income and all the expenses. Okay, so kaning duha mo man siya. So we solve for X, we get the break-even point of 294 units. Okay, so how to solve na dayon for the profit class? All right, so ang kay mangita man tag old break-even points, no? And old and new break-even points, yes. And we also need to compare the old and new profit. So, pangitaan sa natong profit sa old nga setup class. Ningon siya that the production capacity is 500 units per month. Okay? So that means mo na yang na-produce per month. If we multiply that 500, okay? By the way, before ta mag-tanaw sa profit, pag-solve sa profit, ang iyang break-even point class is 294, no? So that means any number beyond 294, mag-positive na gid mong profit. So in this case, ningon siya iyang production capacity is 500 units. We can assume that the company is already gaining. Okay? So that means dapat positive atong makuha nga profit. So again, we multiply 2,000 because this is the selling price multiplied by the 500, the production capacity, that is the income. Okay? Minus all the expenses. So we have 250,000 plus the variable cost, nga 1,150 times 500. Okay? This is your expenses. So we subtract that from our income, we get a profit of 175,000 pesos. All right. So let's go to the new. Ang new class is ang difference niya is ang values mo fixed cost and your variable cost. Why? Because it's stated here that instituted to reduce the fixed cost by 10%. So meaning, advantageous sa company because the fixed cost or the expenses can lower down siya by 10% and the variable cost ni lower down siya by 20%. Okay? So, solving that, we have, ilet lang nato another variable which is y. This is our new break-even point. All right? So, we have an income that is equivalent to 2,000 y. And the cost nato class is, iyang cost, of course, ni ubusman, og 10%, ang 250, multiply na to 0.9. Okay? Or, minusa na to siya sa iyahang 10%. And that's basically equal ani. Okay, so that is 225,000. The variable cost, ni-decrease siya by 20%. So, we just multiply it by 0.8. Okay, y. That is 920 y. And then again, okay, so equating that class, we have 2,000 y, which is the income, and then equals 225,000 plus 920 y. So we'll get a y that is 208 units. Of course, for the new break-even point class, it takes lesser number of units sold no to break even because the fixed cost and the variable cost are both decreased. Okay? So it will follow nga gamay, mugamay siya compared sa imong old nga break-even point. So the profit here before we solve na nasa tong mind nga, oh, it must be greater than our old nga profit value because again the costs are decreased. So the profit now is 2,000 times 500. Okay, for 500 units man to no. Minus the fixed cost is kani lahi na plus 920 times the 500. So we have a new profit that is equal to 315,000 pesos. Okay, moving on to this last problem. Yes, this is the last problem that we have. So as I've mentioned, sa start sa lecture class, that when you compare the two alternatives, ang iyang break-even point is the point where the total cost sa alternatives ni mo kay nag-intersect. Okay? So we have this problem. Two machines are being considered for the production of a particular part for which there is a long-term demand. Machine A costs 50,000 pesos and is expected to last 3 years and have a 10,000 peso salvage value. Machine B costs 75,000 and is expected to last 6 years and have zero salvage value. Machine A can produce a part in 18 seconds. Machine B requires only 12 seconds per part. The out-of-pocket hourly cost of operation is 38 pesos for A and 30 pesos for B. Monthly maintenance costs are 200 pesos for A and 220 pesos for B. If interest on invested capital is 25%, determine the number of parts per year at which the machines are equally economical. If the expected number of parts per year is greater than this break-even quantity, which machine would be favored? Okay, so medyo taas nga problem. All we have to do is separate, well, not really kanang exclusively separate the solution per machine, but kay related raman gid sila class no in the analysis, but we have to identify asa nga mga values ang for machine A, asa nga mga values ang for machine B para mas dali nato siya ma-solve. Okay, so let's start with this second sentence class nga machine A costs 50,000 and is expected to last 3 years and have a 10,000 peso salvage value. So this sentence states nga naa siya salvage value, nasa siya life nga 3 years, no? So, kani nga sentence class actually determines our depreciation value because that is considered in our analysis of the cost, no? So, akong gi-divide diri sa ato ang sa next slide ang solution. So, we'll go back and forth lesson sa previous kita mo siya dili siya mausa. But anyways, all we have to do is first maglet sa taog number of parts, no? So say that is n. Okay? This is the number of parts per year for equal cost. So mo yung break even point or break even value, no, for machine A and machine B. And nganong necessary man ni siya because not because it's not just because it was asking the problem, but also because we have to identify dayon class asa nga machine ang better given ato nga break even value. Okay, so we have n number of parts per year for equal cost. So we'll use here annual cost method. No, basically ang annual cost method is imo lang gi-projecta ng value class annually. So katong na-learn na to sa itong mga previous lectures, nga to lang, tanang mga value, kung present siya, atong pangitaag annual nga equivalent. Okay, and so on. So, tanang values nga itong consider dire kay naka-annual siya. So, machine A, unsa tong buhaton is we identify all the costs. Okay? Cost raman siya. Dili na ta necessary mag-consider sa income class, no? Because again, ang break-even sa two alternatives given is katulang intersection sa imong total cost. So, mga cost lang atong i-identify ani nga problem. So, for machine A, why do we need to get the depreciation? Because in reality, ga-depreciate man gid imong machine class, and that is one of your consideration sa imong cost, meaning outflow na nimo ba kay ga-depreciate man imong value. And atong default nga analysis ani, kung wala man gali ko gaingon og specific nga depreciation method class, atong gamiton nga depreciation method is the sinking fund method because ang premise man gud aning SFM, no, is ga-depreciate imong machine pero sa corporation or sa business at the same time naghulog ta o nag-save up ta ba nga equivalent ato, di ba? If you remember, we have a sinking fund method where the company is saving up, no, that is equivalent to the depreciation charge per year. Okay, so business man ni siya, so dili lang po sila mo allow nga tungod ga depreciate lang siya, wala na dayon. So naay depreciation pero naasay annual or equivalent nga matching investment ato. So that's why SFM atong gamiton, or the sinking fund method. Okay, so if you remember the formula for that, we have the original cost of the machine and that is given by 50,000 kani. And then the salvage value, no, minusan nimo, and then all over, please paki-review sinking fund method. We have F given A. Nya atong interest is 25%, that is also given sa problem. And then iyahang value life is 3 years lang. Okay? So if you compute all that, we have a depreciation, annual depreciation equivalent to 10,492. So this is our consider na itong first cost for machine A. Now, ang maintenance ato class is for machine A is 200. Okay, kini nga value. So 200. Now, that is monthly ang giingon. Monthly maintenance. And remember, we are using the annual cost method. So, pangita na to siya equivalent sa iyang annual. So, kung monthly na siya, i-times na to 12, and we'll get an annual maintenance cost of 2,400 pesos. Okay, let's go to the operation. So, medyo tricky ning part because ang wala man gud tagihatagan og kanang number of units lang diretso, no, sa atong problem. Nag-identify ay nag-ingon pa siya diri that machine A can produce parts in 18 seconds. Okay? And then the cost of hourly operation is 38 pesos. Okay? So from that, ato nang i-convert class. Now, don't worry about the hourly, the seconds, because makancel naman na nato ang time, and then we multiply it by n, which is the variable that we let for the number of parts per year. So, consistent gyapon ta sa ato ang unit nga per year ni siya. So, ang ato lang buhaton is i-convert nato ang katong 18 seconds and 38. So meaning um yang hourly cost na class murag mo imong variable cost no imong 38 pesos per hour. Okay? But the 18 number 18 dili class is ang iyahang ma-produce no nga part kay 18 seconds. So ako atong i-convert ang 18 seconds in hours, that would be divided by 3,600 no. And then kung naka-hours na ni kani naka-hours naman ning duha no, ma-cancel na dayon ning hours diri sa 38 parts man, sorry, yeah, 38 per hour man ni siya nga cost. Okay, so kung ma-cancel imo ang hours dira, then pag times nimo sa end, that will be the total number of parts per year. That is why we have here 0.19 n mo ni mong operation. So gilat pa man nato ng n, unknown pa na siya. And then it also mentioned in the problem that there is an interest on invested capital. So that is also considered as a cost. Okay? Because ang start sa business class, na siya capital, no? And then, nag-interest man to siya nga capital. Nga imong, say, gihulman siguro, giloan siguro mo somewhere. So, we must find the equivalent gihapon niya nga value, no? So per year man na siya, and pwede ra ta mo gamit sa kanang simple interest nato because again we are considering the annual cost method. So atong 50,000 nga original cost nato class, diretso ra siya multiplyan by 25%, and that is the interest on capital per year imong annual. So that is 12,500. So if you total that, you have 25,392 plus 0.19 n. Okay, unknown pang n. And then, for machine B, same lagi po na to ang process, no? Sa machine A. It's just that kaning atong original cost sa machine B as given in the problem is 75,000 with zero salvage value. So, minus zero. So, 75,000 in yung numerator. Imong denominator is F given A for 25%, for n period of time. So, naka 6 years man na siya, no? So, we have an annual depreciation of 6,661, right? And then the maintenance class, if machine A is 200 to 20 man gihatag for machine B, so 8 times 12 ra gyapon na, you'll get 2,640. And the same with machine A, ang operation, ato ra gyapon tong i-convert, no? Ang difference lang is 30 pesos ang iyang hourly cost, and it can produce a part for 12 seconds. So, i-convert gyapon na nimo in hours. So, divide 3,600. You'll get an operation cost of 0.1 n. So, the interest in capital, same, 25%, but the original cost is 75,000. So, the interest per year is 18,750. Okay, so the total is 28,051 plus 0.1 n. And then, again, i-equate nato ang ato ang machine A o machine B. And the idea is that unsa man daw ang number of parts or number of units nga mag-break even ang cost sa imong machine A and machine B. Okay? So, if we equate that one, we'll get an N that is 29,544. So, ang pasabot ani class, if machine A produces 29,544 parts, and machine B produces 29,544 parts, both machine A and machine B will have an equal cost. Okay? Now, ang pangutanan niya class is, so mo nang break-even point na landuhan, no? Ang pangutana is, given ani break-even point sa duha ka machine, asa man daw ang machine nga i-favor nato. Okay? If the expected number of parts per year is greater than this break-even quantity. Meaning class, kung gi-project nila nga ang number of parts nga ma-produce per year is greater than this break-even value, unsa man karon atong gamiton nga machine which is more economical. So, pwede man ta mag-assume diri class, no, given ani ilahang mga value. Okay? So, maglet lang ta class. Ako lang ning gikuan diri sa for example, if n is greater than if n is greater than 29,444, butang lang natog i-equal na tog 30K, no? So kung pangitaan nato ni total class, total cost, kamo na lang komputula, nalimot ko sa exact value, wala ko calculator dire. But if you calculate ang total cost sa imuhang machine A, given ang 30K parts nga i-produce per year ha, and sa machine B, nga 30K gihapon, you will see that the total cost for machine B is much lesser than your machine A. Okay? So, mag-assume gyapon ka, pwede ka mag-assume 40K parts ang iyahang i-produce per year. Asak ha ang mas gasto. So, again, i-input lang na dira, o i-input lang na dira, whichever is smaller, then, mao to nga machine ang ato ang pilion. And, actually, class, naka-graph na the next slide, we can conclude that machine B will be more economical for number of parts more than 29,544. Okay, kay kini man gud siya class, if you graph this sa Desmos or any graphing nga kuan ninyo, this is just linear, no? Kini sa linear. Now, if you graph that, mo ni siya ang itsura. This is our break-even chart, no? Gilat lang nato 10, 20 at up to 50 pero naka times 1,000 na no kay tag 29 tag 5 digits man ang atong number of parts. And then atong cost is gikan sa 25,000 o 28,000, no? That is kung zero ang imong ma-produce ba, pila din imong initial cost. Kay mo ni siya nga value, kini nga value. Okay, kung zero. Now, kining red diri class is the machine A, kini nga graph, kining A. And then, kini imong B. Okay? So, kani nga point nga gi-intersect sila class, mo ni ang point, again, nga nag-equal ang ilang cost. Kay kini mga cost man ni siya nga graph, no, kining nasa Y. Okay? So, 8 times 10,000 na nato siya. So, again, kung n mo is 0, ang imuhang machine A will have kanilang nga value, no, 25,392. And then your B will have 28,051. Okay, so that's why kini na siya nga mga value. Alright. Now, what happens daw? Unsa daw kuno ang mas economical? Kung mo beyond na ang number of parts nga ma-produce, no, beyond sa break-even point. Now, kung makita ninyo, class, ma-observe ninyo, less than the value of the break-even point, kung lesser ang break-even point, mas economical ang A. Right? Because the cost of A is way lesser than your B. Naro, imong B kina sa babaw. So, meaning, wala pa ni abot wala pa siya nakaproduce og 29,544 parts, mas gasto ang A. Sorry, mas gasto ang B. Kinama na siya sa babaw sa A. Pero pag abot na gani sa break-even point, musugod na siya and beyond ana, musugod na ang B kay mas economical na siya. Lesser na siya than A. Imong A yun na naggagasto gihapon ka. Okay? So that is the analysis for the break-even for two alternatives. Okay, I think that ends the lesson. So if you have questions, you can feel free to comment on the Google Classroom post.